times. Even my sister Clara started going out with Junior Chavez, who was the son of one of my mom's cousins on my mother's side, and they lived across the tracks. So, you know, Clara and Carol were a little bit more involved with some of the people, some of the kids from South Colton. But they found out very quickly who they could go out with and who they couldn't.
Well, your mom kept a visual eye on them, so
Oh yeah,
that was
all
pretty
the time.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did. She was.
And Tula, your Aunt Tula, she was very much involved with the Fiestas Patrias.
Oh yes.
Was that because of your dad's influence, or because she strongly believed in the program?
Well, I think they both believed in the program. One of the things that I learned was that, and I'm going a little bit off of my little thing here, but when the war started, World War II, a lot of the young men from South Colton went to war. And while they were there, they found out that they were actually Americans. They didn't realize that they were American. They thought they were just Mexican.
Mexicans,
yes.
Uh-huh.
And so it was enlightening for them that they could also celebrate July 4th with pride.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came back from the war, after the war ended, they started celebrating Las Fiestas Patrias, and that's the notes that I was reading. So I'm not sure who initially started it or why. I just know that they were very much involved in that celebration. And the effect of because my tias, Cuca and Tula, and also my aunts on my mother's side, Ramona and Rosa, they used to go to the dances that were offered by the USO in Riverside at March Field and other places. And so they loved to dance and they loved music. So they were beginning to integrate into what you would call the white community. But as the men came back and started realizing that they had rights, things started to change. And one of the things that most impressed my aunts was the fact that they are American. They were American, not just Mexican American. Well, not even Mexican American wasn't a term that was used at that time. But I don't know how it happened, but my aunts, Maria, Tula, and Cuca, I don't know if they got together. I know they talked about it, and they decided that they needed to be as American as they possibly could. So they went and they officially and formally changed their names from Maria to Mary, from Gertrudis to Gertrude, and my Aunt Cuca's Refugio to Ruth. So they got their birth certificates changed. There was an official name change.
And what year was that, Terry?
Well, it was after the war.
So in the 40s?
In the 40s, yeah. I don't know if it was the mid-40s.
Uh-huh.
Could have been the mid-40s. And they did, and I, I heard it and I went, wow,
And the attitude that they got after the war, which was to be as American as possible.
Exactly.
Was it a trend in the community to do something like that, or were they avant-garde kind of females that thought that was a thing to do?
I don't know if that was a thing that they did in the community. I've never heard anybody else mention that. But I think what they wanted to do was be recognized as Americans as much as possible. And in thinking about it now, I think too that that's one of the reasons that we went to school where we went, because we went to what you would consider a private school, which was a Catholic school. And my brother and I went, and my sisters. And then when Immaculate Conception School was created, Clara and Carol went there, and then they transferred over to St. Bernardine, for the rest of their education. But I really never knew why, and I think now that I'm reflecting on the name change and things like that, I think possibly that was their effort to integrate us into.
Yeah, because, some of the things that I've read mention that because of the war, that our girls from the community had a chance to leave home and get a job outside the home. And then having a job, they were considered themselves a little more independent, and they were earning money, so they could purchase things that they couldn't before. So it gave them a sense of independence. And then we read about Rosie the Riveter, and we had a lot of our girls also work at North Air Force Base during the war. So that's why I was curious about your aunts.
My Aunt Ramona on my mom's side, she was the one that was she was very outgoing, and she went to Long Beach, and she worked in the aircraft, I think it was Lockheed at the time, and she was a riveter. She worked on the planes, but my Aunt Rosa followed her, Piri Lujan or Pimentel followed her, and they were out there earning money and creating a life for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, your Aunt Tula and your Aunt Maria, they stand out in my history because they were always involved with the Fiestas Patrias, and you mentioned the Fiestas Patrias where they taught people that participated the songs, the poems, the history of the importance of Fiestas Patrias, and they did that for many years.
Yes, they did.
They did that for many years. And the other thing is that, were they also very involved in the church in Colton?
I would say yes. I laugh because yes, they were very much involved. My Aunt Mary was, she was I think she was the oldest one. I got to read the dates in it. Anyway, she was very much involved. She loved gardening, and so for her, her ministry was the flowers for the church, but also she also took care of the vestments and the altar cloths, and even made altar cloths, and the little cloths that went over the ciborium after Mass. She loved doing it, and I have some of those things that I happened to gather after she died. And she was very proud of her work in that regard. And Tula, she was involved mostly in the Fiestas Patrias. She was involved in church. She was very, what we say, proactive, or she knew what she wanted to do and how to do it. And I think people realized that her and Father Valencia always used to come to, they didn't agree on everything.
She was an assertive.
You know that too.
I do. Yeah, my mom was a good friend of Tula's and would talk about how she was very strong, and so that, and Father Valencia was very strong, so it was very easy to disagree with him.
Yeah, and of course he had the louder voice, being male, but in any case, she never backed down from him, never. And, she knew what was right, and if she couldn't get it the nice way, she insisted on it. And that was who she was.
Yeah.
She went to Mexico quite often because I think she probably visited relatives and things like that. And she always made it a point to make friends with the priests and the bishops over there. I don't know how she did it, but she did, and sometimes they would come and visit the family home. So I knew she was well known when she went over there to visit.
I remember my mom was visiting with her one time, and I went along, and she was just so proud of everything, just of the family, of everything in Mexico, and she would tell us que no hay ningún cielo tan bonito como el de Mexico and stuff like that. I mean, such pride.
She was very proud.
Yeah, and then my mom talked about. Well, actually, I got to see a little bit of the children, reciting at the Fiestas Patrias when they were right there on La Cadena, or 8th and N Street, before that was taken away. And that was very beautiful.
And the stage was always set up with all the important people on the background, and then the Queen and everything. It was quite, what do you call it?
It was very beautiful because
Yeah.
even the lighting, you know, the electric bulbs that people used to hang for the lighting, you know, I know that this kind of lighting is more efficient and everything, but it doesn't
Mhm.
seem as pretty at night. You know, those old incandescent light bulbs that hung over the fiestas just
Right.
made everything look good, you know, and the girls wearing their china poblana with all the
Red,
sparkly,
white, and green.
Yes.
Yeah.
the sparkly colors. It was so beautiful.
And I think all the dresses were handmade at that time.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Fiestas Patrias was what, Henry, a celebration of independence from
Spain.
From
From
Spain.
Spain?
Mhm.
1810?
1810 to 1821.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the big celebration for our community. The Cinco de Mayo celebration, I think a lot of people believe came into being simply because it was during the school year,
Mhm.
and the Fiestas Patrias were just before the school started.
In the Fiestas Patrias, you mentioned the stage and the girls
Mhm.
that were selected as a queen
As
and a
queen.
princess.
Mhm.
How did that happen?
I think it was primarily fundraising. I have no idea other than that, because
Mhm.
they were always selling tickets.
So whoever sold the most ticket
Mhm.
became the queen of the
La fiesta.
La Fiesta.
Mhm.
La Fiesta.
Yeah. Just the way San Salvador has their annual fiesta, they ask the girls to run for queen, and whoever sells the most tickets is
Mhm.
selected queen.
And then they
And I
they
think
also
that's what-
they also had a parade, didn't they?
Oh, yes, they had a parade that started, I think it started downtown, didn't it?
It started
Yeah,
downtown.
at Fleming Park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it went
It
south.
went south, and then it went up N Street, and then over on Fifth Street, was it Fifth Street? And then it came around, and then back to the Fiesta grounds.
Mhm, mhm.
And
And
the-
did they also have a dance?
If they did, I don't know.
They have a
I
dance
imagine.
in?
You know, I think they did over on the street side.
Yes.
Yeah, they
yeah,
did, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the activity was what, 1, 2, 3 days?
It was the 2 days.
A 2-day
With a
activity?
grito on the night of the 15th to the
Mhm.
16th.
Okay, that's September 15 and 16.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there was, the proclamation was read at that time, and then the grito.
Mhm.
And usually the council from Mexico attended, the mayor of Colton, and sometimes the mayor of San Bernardino. There was a lot of dignitaries that were invited to participate.
And were the Progresistas a sponsor of the activity? The Progresista group?
I don't think so. I have that somewhere in my notes.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember the Progresistas being mentioned. I think it was the Congress that was primarily.
Congress of Community Clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Congress of
Yeah.
Community Clubs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, Terry, your dad was quite a musician. He played the guitar.
Well, yeah, he played the guitar and he played the piano,
Uh-huh.
and he played by ear. And he prided himself in being able to play all the songs of the day, and he would do that. And the guitar was his constant companion wherever he went. And I think people enjoyed his music quite a
Mhm.
bit. And he
Mhm.
sang too. So
Did he sing boleros or?
he sang anything that he knew,
Uh-huh.
or anything that was popular.
Uh-huh.
He would study, or not study, but learn the music and
Mhm.
how to play the various changes in the guitar.
Mhm.
He would
Mhm.
do that. I don't think I ever heard him play any length of time. I just heard that that's what he did.
Yeah, yeah. And then I would imagine that the family also are musicians because you're a musician. You play the piano, and you actively involved in the church choir. Would you tell us about your activities as far as music and volunteering in the church as a music director or being part of the choir?
Well, you know, being a church musician is a calling. It's not anything that I ever pursued or wanted to do. And I think you understand that,
Yeah.
what the calling is. And I started learning how to play the piano when I was 5. And my teacher was my tia Cuca. She taught me solfeo. And so that transitioning from Spanish to English musically was hard for me because the scales don't start the same way. You know, ABCs, you know, you start CB, so whatever.
Mhm.
Anyway, I was taught by Mrs. Engel. You know, their family was a family of doctors in Colton. I'm not sure how my mom found them, but anyway, I started taking lessons from her, and I took lessons for about, I'd say 5 years, and then when I went into junior high, I didn't want to take them anymore, so I stopped taking them, but it was the basis of what I know, and that's as far as formally as I got in my musical education. And I didn't really start getting involved again in the church, because when I graduated from high school, I moved out of the house and when, you know, I did my thing. But then after I got married and I was in my 30s, we went back to Colton to live in the area. And at that time, I also started working for the church as a secretary. And then the people that were involved very much in the church wanted to have a choir, start a choir. And it was primarily Danny Carrasco's wife. What was her name? Do you remember? Cecilia. Yeah. She approached me and said, "You know how to read music, so you're going to lead the choir." So I said, "Okay." You know, if I had known, I would have said, "Why don't you ask Henry?" Or one of his brothers or cousins or whatever. But I didn't know any. I didn't know at that time. But anyway, I said, "Well, okay." So that started for me an education in how to build a group, how to be nice to people, and not, you know, because when you don't know how to do something and people expect certain things out of you, you start getting very directive. And you say, "You do this, no. Well, the people loved to sing, and so they accepted me for who I was at the time. And the group grew to be 25, 30 people.
It was big.
Yeah. You were an organist at one time, accompanist, and so was Danny Mercado. And Henrietta Lopez's son was helped out at one time. And, you know, I'm surprised they never quit on me, because I was so demanding. You know, it was terrible, I know, but I have changed. And at one point, we decided to make a tape. And so Henry helped put it together, and we did it in one afternoon, and, you know, whether it was good or not, it came out, and we sold the tapes. And it was fun doing that. Yeah, it was a good fundraiser. And so eventually, and throughout my career and as being a church musician, I've worked in many different parishes in very many different capacities. And I have worked at, I was working on this afternoon. I have had choirs at St. Edward's in Corona. I had a choir for Holy Rosary, the cathedral. There was a choir in Holy Family in Hesperia, Our Lady of the Desert in Apple Valley, where I minister right now. And I've also worked in liturgy committees as such. So, and I've, you know, have attended many workshops and conventions sponsored by the National Association of Pastoral Musicians. So over the years, I guess I've developed a certain amount of knowledge in terms of what to do and what not to do. But I have also developed myself in terms of being able to lead a choir and also improve my skills as a pianist. And you know, this is all God-given. It's not anything that I set out to do. I didn't say, well, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in church. I want to do this and this. He touched